The world of online pop wellness can sometimes make it seem like skin conditions and skin imbalances are only a root cause issue that can be only worked with through nutrition. And while I do think this is a big piece of the picture, I talk about these things all the time. The beauty of skin is that we can work with it from the inside out and the outside in. Today's part 3 of my series on redness and rosacea, and I want to share the topical piece, what you can actually do when you're standing in a shop looking at skincare, wondering what the heck to actually buy and also what not to buy. If you're an esthetician listening, this is also a great episode to understand what skincare to grab when the client on your table has rosacea. You are listening to Skin, Earth, Vitality, the podcast where ancient wisdom meets modern vitality. If you are seeking to reconnect with your innate vibrancy, you're in the right place. I'm Emily Davis, a seasoned holistic esthetician and herbalist. Join me as we unlock the secrets of ancient skincare practices, explore the beauty of seasonal and nature-based living, herbalism, and true holistic well-being for you and the broader ecosystem. This podcast is brought to you by Stratum Aesthetics. Head to stratumaesthetics.com to find curated skincare, body care, and other wellness products hand-selected by me. Now enjoy the show. Please remember that the information I share in this podcast is based on my personal and professional experience and is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not individualized skincare advice, nor is it medical advice. I encourage you to take charge of your own health decisions and listen to your body, seeking out the resources and professionals that best support your wellness journey. Welcome back in. My last 2 episodes, we've talked about the mechanisms of redness and rosacea and the lifestyle piece. So if you haven't listened to those 2, after you listen to this episode today, go back and give them a listen because it's going to give you so many more ideas for addressing lifestyle to more effectively work with rosacea, but it was missing something. And so in this final episode in the series, I want to share just about the topical skincare piece. I'm going to walk you through how to put together a routine, what stuff you want, what you want to avoid. And at the end of the episode, I have a recipe for a mask that I like to make and work with in the treatment room and at home too. If you find value in this episode today, I have a favor. I would love if you could rate and review the podcast. It means the absolute world to me. It helps the show to grow, helping other people just like you to find the show and hopefully support their skin too. All right, so in addition to being an esthetician, I'm an herbalist and I also practice a philosophy called corneotherapy, which is all about leaning into the integrity of your skin. So today, as I walk you through the products, I will be looking through all 3 of those lenses and how we can support skin barrier, how we can work with beautiful botanicals and plant allies to improve skin healing. And yeah, so with that, let's go ahead and start with cleansers. This is surprisingly important for this particular skin issue, redness and or rosacea. In episode 106, which was the first episode in this series called Why Is My Face Red?, I talked about the different mechanisms that contribute to facial redness, and one of those is an impaired barrier. So this is the very important invisible layer on the surface of your skin that keeps it soft, supple, luminous. It also keeps it calm. It keeps it hydrated. And as we're talking about cleansers, I want to start with makeup removal. I myself just prefer plain jojoba oil for this. I'm not a fan of micellar water, especially if you're having redness or rosacea, aka an impaired barrier. Micellar water is just water and chemical compounds called emulsifiers. There are some emulsifiers and some formulas with emulsifiers that aren't terrible, but micellar water is marketed as gentle, it's no rinse, and it's essentially just these emulsifiers suspended in water. Emulsifiers are designed to grab onto oil, which means that they're grabbing onto the lipids, the oils in your barrier that keep it soft and supple, luminous, seal water into the skin. It's pulling those off every single time you're using it. And so using this type of a product is basically just applying a barrier disruptant agent on already compromised skin. So I want to get that out of the way first. Is micellar water is definitely one that I would avoid. I really wouldn't use it on anybody's skin. I think it's one of the most undesirable skincare products that are out there. Equally as unenticing to me are makeup wipes. Common makeup wipes that you find at the grocery store or at Target are a big no for me. So makeup wipes are dragging fragrance and synthetic preservatives and surfactants all across already reactive skin while physically tugging at tissue that really needs gentleness and care. These are one of the most aggressive things that you can buy for your skin. Instead, get soft organic cotton rounds or what are called aesthetic wipes. Get the cotton ones. The silky ones are polyrayon, aka plastic. So get the cotton ones. Also, there's so many lovely reusable cotton rounds for makeup removal. Just make sure that you're gliding with a good amount of oil for any of these that you're using and not rubbing and tugging at the tissue. So I'll grab my cotton round, get it wet, apply oil or the oil cleanser and apply a generous amount, and then just remove your makeup with that without tugging and rubbing at your eye. Okay, so now we've taken our makeup off. Cleansers can be one of the biggest culprits for barrier impairment that I see in my one-on-one work with people when I'm going over products with people. To make cleanser shopping easy for rosacea and redness-prone skin, a couple of questions you can ask are, does it foam? If yes, put it back. Foaming means there are chemical compounds called surfactants. Surfactants are like detergents, and surfactants strong enough to create a lather are going to be more stripping than this type of skin needs. Another question you can ask is, after you use it, does it make your skin feel tight, dry, or squeaky clean? If the answer is yes, I would try something else. That's also a sign that it's just taking too many lipids from your skin. Next is fragrance. Either synthetic, if it says parfum, fragrance, that's an immediate no for me. Essential oils are something that I try to avoid for barrier impaired skin, but they're not always the absolute worst. I know, the girlies from Instagram say that they are, but not all essential oils are created equally and not all formulas are created equally. For example, I love Laurel skincare. I think it is absolutely chef's kiss. In Laurel's products, she is a brilliant formulator. She microdoses essential oils, and I find her products to be well tolerated and barrier restorative. I see this clinically in my practice, and there are plenty of botanical lines that way overdo it with essential oils, and that is problematic. And it's tough because it's hard to really know if the line is doing that or not. And so sometimes it's trial and error. I used to work with a botanical line in my treatment room, and I'm doing a lot of massage with oils during my treatments. Like I'll be massaging the arms. I do a ton of décolleté and neck massage, and I was using this company's body oil, and they are a professional herbalist formulated skincare brand made for use in the treatment room. And I was finding over time that it was aggravating eczema on my hands. And I just knew that they were overdoing it with the essential oils. So something to always look out for. If it's really, really smelly, like very fragrancy, even with essential oils, it's probably not something that you want to put on rosacea prone skin. So what should we look for? I would look for an oil, a balm, or a milk cleanser. I carry a handful of these in my shop. I have a collection called Rosacea that I will link in the show notes so you can peruse. But this episode isn't just a giant commercial for my apothecary. Of course, I carry these products that I carry for a reason. When I fall in love with something and I find that it works, I bring it in. But if you're just shopping, I want you to write this down. When looking at the ingredients for a cleansing balm, does it contain polysorbate 80 or any polysorbate? If so, put it back. This is not the cleanser for you. Polysorbates are added to cleansing balms specifically to help them emulsify and rinse off with water. They're extremely effective at that job, but a true cleansing balm for compromised skin is not going to rinse off clean. It needs to be removed with a warm, damp cloth. That's the whole point of a cleansing balm. You're dissolving debris with oil and wiping it away rather than emulsifying it off. The next ingredient I want to talk about when it comes to cleansing balms, this might ruffle some feathers, but tallow is also not your friend if you have rosacea. I know that there are many people out there who are on the tallow train, and if you feel that it's working for you, more power to you. But for an already dysbiotic skin microbiome, tallow really isn't what you want because it's high in a fatty acid called oleic acid. Our skin sebum, or our skin oil, also has oleic acid. And remember from the last episode, who's in there munching down on our skin oils and then dying and releasing all their bacteria, contributing to inflammation, and one of the main drivers of rosacea, the Demodex mite. And so oleic acid isn't bad. Our body has this incredible, intelligent design, and we want oleic acid. It's already part of our skin sebum. But we also have something in the skin sebum called linoleic acid. Linoleic acid in sebum helps maintain the integrity of the follicular lining, and it keeps the environment more hostile to opportunistic growth. When linoleic acid drops and oleic rises, that follicular environment, the environment on our skin, is going to be more hospitable to things like Demodex and certain bacteria. So putting a high oleic acid oil and ingredients like tallow on the skin is not going to be helpful. It can make it worse. And if you've been around for a while, you will know I'm not one for like blanket statements, and I think nuance can always be brought into the conversation. And so, there may be formulations out there that would totally change my mind on this if tallow were in a proper formulation that also had high linoleic acid ingredients like sunflower oil, meadow foam, tamanu. That might change my mind, but in general, I see a lot of not great tallow formulations, and I think that there are better ingredients out there. Okay, Oil cleansers are a pretty safe bet. You want to look for, again, skin-compatible oils with the high linoleic acid compound, especially if you have rosacea, especially because of that Demodex mite. Linoleic acid is often deficient in really reactive and compromised skin, so replenishing it topically is going to support that barrier repair. Some oils that I love for this, jojoba. This is not high in linoleic because it's a wax ester, but it is similar to our skin sebum. It's quite well tolerated for the most part. I also really like cold pressed organic sunflower seed oil, meadow foam, tamanu, sea buckthorn. These are all beautiful ingredients in an oil cleanser. Moving through the routine, next thing you would do is exfoliation. You want to avoid any and all scrubs, anything gritty, anything grainy. This is a no for rosacea prone skin. Instead, I would look for an extremely gentle enzyme. I love the one that I carry. It's called Oasis Enzyme from Live Botanicals. It's really, really nice. Once a month is good for me. I talked about this in 2 episodes ago. I have come to the conclusion from trial and error that this once a month pattern works. For some people, once a week is more appropriate if their skin is thicker, if it's more oily, if it's creating a lot of skin cells. Papaya is really lovely. I love a honey mask. French pink clay is a beautiful exfoliant. With a clay, especially with this type of skin, I don't allow it to fully dry. You could even pair it with honey or glycerin, aloe, hydrosols to buffer it a little bit. Just make sure that you're not letting it dry and get cracky on the skin. Next up is toners. I would avoid toners with alcohols or acids like lactic acid or glycolic acid. I think this is way too harsh. Instead, I would look for a lovely hydrosol blend or even just rose water. Just make sure if you're buying rose water that you're getting a true hydrosol. This is water collected during steam distillation of the plant rather than a rose water that's just water with rose fragrance added. A true rose hydrosol will say hydrosol or floral water on the label. With serums for this skin, I want to see herb-based serums, oil serums, things that are feeding and calming rather than treating or correcting. The Laurel Unburdened Serum is my go-to here. It's a very light oil serum with calming herbs that also supports lymphatic movement. I'm avoiding vitamin C's, niacinamides in high concentrations, retinoids, acids of any kinds. Those are all going to be disruptive to skin that needs stability more than anything else. For moisturizers, I'm thinking about 2 things. Am I feeding the barrier? And am I adding anything that's going to keep the inflammatory cascade going? So what I want to see in a moisturizer is oils, butters, hydrosols, herb extracts. I want the formula to for sure be fragrance-free, or again, microdosed essential oils I think are okay. And I'm looking at the pattern of the skin in front of me, and I want the texture of this moisturizer to match the pattern that I'm seeing. So a depleted person needs something richer and more occlusive. And then maybe that person with an excess heat patterns needs something lighter that isn't going to feel heavy and lock that heat into the skin. My current favorites for this skin type are Blissoma Pure, which is my answer to the dermatologist recommended moisturizer. It's fragrance-free, very thoughtfully formulated, genuinely barrier supportive. And then for someone who needs a little bit more nourishment, their skin's more depleted, I love the Laurel Recovery Balm. It's rich without being heavy. The herb profile is super appropriate for redness. It's so beautiful. And I do want to briefly mention hyaluronic acid for this skin type because I'm in a moment of reckoning with hyaluronic acid. I've kind of avoided it for a long time, but I've been experimenting with a moisturizer that I'm considering bringing into my shop, and it's quite rich with hyaluronic acid. And I'm trying to be open-minded because on paper, hyaluronic acid seems benign for the skin, and in my early years as an esthetician, it was like, oh, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. High molecular weight hyaluronic acid sits on the surface and draws water from the environment, which is beautiful in a humid climate, but potentially drying in a low humidity environment like Colorado because it's potentially pulling water from the deeper layers of the skin if there's not enough moisture in the air to pull from. That's the opposite of what we want, especially for compromised skin. Low molecular weight hyaluronic acid, which is the other option, penetrates deeper, but there's some emerging concern that it can trigger inflammatory response, especially in compromised skin, and it may be recognized as a damage signal by your skin's immune cells. Okay. I also think with the right formula, that high molecular weight hyaluronic acid isn't the worst thing. I've been really changing my mind about it lately. I still think marshmallow and licorice and plantain, plants like this, are superior, but I am starting to become more open-minded to this ingredient. With that said, if you're using something with hyaluronic acid, and your skin's giving you problems, I would take a break for a good 6 to 8 weeks and see how your skin responds. I like to just do one change at a time for 6 to 8 weeks because if you're changing a lot of stuff, it's, who knows what's causing the good reaction or the bad reaction. So take that break for 6 to 8 weeks, use something very simple in that time, and then bring it back in and watch what happens. As far as SPF goes, you know that I have a complex relationship with SPF. And when we bring rosacea and redness into the picture, it gets even a little bit more muddy. I don't believe in sunscreen all day, every day. I don't think that's a good idea. It's not what I do for my skin. It's not what I recommend. I also think people with rosacea have a higher inflammatory load and higher sensitivity. And I think that proper amounts of unfiltered skin is very healing. And I also think that sitting in the middle of the day, especially if circadian health isn't optimized, can be problematic. If you're like, what the heck are you talking about? Circadian health, don't know what that is. I have 2 episodes about it, episode 66 and 73. I also talked about it specifically for redness and rosacea in episode 106. So for rosacea skin specifically, most sunscreens are full of things that are going to perpetuate the problem. Chemical sunscreens with avobenzone, oxybenzone, they're all potential sensitizers for already hypersensitized skin. And the culture of applying SPF 50 every single morning, reapplying it every 2 hours indoors, is going to cause its own type of stress to the skin. If you do need sun protection, first, seek shade is pretty amazing. It works really well. Dress in light layers. We love linen in the summer. And if you're using a product, I would prefer a non-nano zinc oxide mineral sunscreen with a very clean, simple formula over a chemical sunscreen full of potential sensitizers on already reactive skin. My favorite is Blissoma, has their photonic. It's just a really beautiful product, especially for this type of skin. That's basically the entire full-blown skincare routine from beginning to end. Now, with that said, for rosacea and redness prone skin, I would really pare back and simplify your skincare routine. So I think the essentials are a once a day cleanser, preferably at night, and a moisturizer. So moisturizer may be a cream or it may be an oil mixed with a hydrosol. Oil plus hydrosol is doing the same thing that a cream is doing, and if you're using an SPF. So those are the base products. I think simple is generally better when it comes to skincare. If you really want to expand into the others, into the serums, the exfoliation, love that. But I would start out with a very simple routine. Tools are also something very supportive. I really like our best tools, which are our hands. I have a video of how to do lymphatic drainage with your hands. Pretty cool because they're already built in and they're free. It's not something extra you need to buy. Plus, it's a really beautiful way to get quiet and connect with yourself. Tools are also really fun. One of my favorite tools that you can purchase is the lymph brush from Cecily Braden. Lymph movement is going to move all of those inflammatory molecules that we talked about in the last 2 episodes, the cytokines, the prostaglandins. Those are what give the message to the vessels to dilate, which then causes redness. So the lymph brush makes it quite foolproof, which I really appreciate. I also have a video of how to properly use the lymphatic brushes. I also have been really into the reflexology wand lately. I have to be honest, I've been sleeping on it a little bit because yes, I love reflexology. I've taken a million facial reflexology courses and I think it's pretty cool. But what I've been really interested in the reflexology wand for lately is fascia. This is because when facial fascia becomes tight or restricted, it can form tension. We get our habitual expressions that we make, stress held in our face, even dental work, and this can physically compress the lymph vessels and blood vessels running through the face. So we've got these compressed lymph vessels and they can't drain efficiently, and we already know what sluggish lymph does for the skin. So the reflexology wand is communicating through the tissue. The pressure that we're putting on our face as we're gliding this wand across, or it's sometimes called a pen, as we're gliding this across our face is going to help release compressed lymphatic vessels. Also, fascia generates an electrical charge when mechanical stress is applied to it. It's called piezoelectric. Think of it as like a spider web under your skin. So it's got this fibrous tissue, but it's also a hydrated gel, and the fluid within is electrically conductive. We've got signals moving through the tissue just the way that a signal moves through a wire. And chronic inflammation, like we see with rosacea, changes the electrical properties of the tissue. So inflamed tissue has altered piezoelectric behavior. Regular mechanical stimulation can gradually restore more normal piezoelectric behavior in this inflamed tissue. Gua sha can also be nice. You can use the stone to do lymphatic movement if you place it flat on the skin and kind of pump it downward. But true gua sha is about creating blood flow on the skin by scraping it and moving the stone or the tool around. I love doing this, but I would not be doing that type of work on a client with rosacea. At least I should say on affected areas. You might like to get it into your neck, into your scalp, and then obviously we're going to be gentle and more sweeping with our tool over areas where you see redness and reactivity. Cupping is one that you want to be really careful with because it can cause more stress to the vascular tissue. Obviously, cupping is a suction and it's drawing blood to the surface and stretching the vessel walls. And when our skin is already dealing with chronic dilated or weak vascular tissue, we're just adding more stress that's unnecessary. And so with facial cups, what I would do, I spoke about this in our first episode of this series, I believe it was. You can work the neck, work in that area between your collarbone and your neck. You can work under the jaw area if that's not affected by redness. You could do your forehead if you're not seeing redness there. But I would avoid any areas where you're seeing capillaries, where you're seeing increased chronically red skin. Okay. Last but not least, I want to share a recipe that I love to concoct for red, reactive, rosacea prone skin. So I'm taking organic powdered herbs. These can be purchased. I think at Mountain Rose Herbs is where I get all of these, and Star West Botanicals has them, but you want the powdered herb because it's going to make it extract better and faster for our purposes here. So I get 1 part marshmallow root, 1 part licorice root powder. Sorry, these are all powders. 1 part plantain powder, 1 part colloidal oats. So I mix equal parts in a jar so that it's already ready to roll. And then I take a teaspoon of that powder that's already mixed together, and I mix that teaspoon with a teaspoon of raw honey and like 1 to 2 teaspoons. Start with 1 teaspoon of rose hydrosol, or you could really use like any hydrosol that you want. Calendula hydrosol, cucumber hydrosol is beautiful. Mix them together until they mix into a spreadable paste, and then you want to let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes to allow the honey and the hydrosol to extract the constituents from these herbal powders. After it's done, you can apply it to the skin. You can use your fingers if you're working at home, but if you have a mask brush at home, love that too. Let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes on your skin. If you're an esthetician listening in the spa, you can also get those pre-cut facial cotton masks. They're like a really thin cotton. It's not a gauze, but it's a tighter weave, and they have like the eyes, the nose, and the mouth already cut out. I really like to take that and add more hydrosol, getting it totally submerged in the hydrosol, and then apply that on top, keeping it nice and cool. This will just add another layer of yumminess. So allow it to sit for 10 to 15 minutes and then remove with a warm, damp cloth. Why do I like each of these ingredients so much? Marshmallow is just such an amazing, what's called demulcent herb. Demulcent is what reactive inflamed skin wants. When marshmallow root powder meets water, it's going to begin releasing what's called mucilage. This is a thick, slippery polysaccharide gel that's going to coat and protect the surface. Marshmallow as a candy was originally created to help with kids' sore throats and making it nice and sweet so that they would actually eat it. But you could imagine that marshmallow root creating that film and just like coating a really raw sore throat. I think about that on the skin. It's very similar tissue, the skin of your GI tract and your facial skin. Licorice root in a water extraction, like in this mask, is going to release compounds that calm inflammatory signaling in the skin. I had always learned about licorice as a skin brightener, but it's actually one of my favorite ingredients for reactive skin. It's just so cooling. It's sweet. That means it's going to help reduce heat. Plantain leaf, I'm talking about plantago. This is not plantain like a banana. This is such an underrated herb. It grows everywhere. It's often seen as a weed. I was actually walking through the park just today and I saw some and I was like, oh, she's so cute, but she looks like a weed. Like most people would think of her as a weed, but as you know, weeds are medicine. Plantain, similar to rose, is what's called an astringent plant. It's releasing tannins, especially in this water extraction. And astringent means to tighten tissue. It's going to draw things together. It reduces excess fluid and firms up lax tissue. So we like this for those dilated vessels that are creating the redness. It also has mucilage in it. It's really just like a beautiful, what's called vulnerary plant, meaning that it's going to increase healing of the skin. And then colloidal oats, I'm not actually sure if Mountain Rose carries these or if I ordered these like by just Googling organic colloidal oats. It's like an oat powder, a very fine grind of oats. And oats have been used as a skin soother also across many traditions. Even in my own household, I remember when I was a kid and had chicken pox doing oatmeal baths. In this mask, colloidal oats are releasing beta-glucans. These are compounds that calm the tissue, reduce histamine response. They're going to form a protective layer on the skin surface. Oats are just so nourishing and calming. As I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go mix up a little batch of this after the show and do a little self-care moment as I edit. So if you're interested in getting that recipe, I will put a link to get like a PDF of the recipe that you can have in front of you, either at home or in your treatment room in the show notes. That is what I have for you today. So I hope that it has been helpful. I went through what to look for in a cleanser, a makeup remover, an exfoliant, a toner, a serum, moisturizer, SPF. I also shared about the different tools that you may like to pick up if you're in the market for more tools for your skin. I love tools because they are a non-consumable form of skincare. You buy the lymph brush once and then it's like you have it and you're not constantly needing to restock it like other skincare. And so I think that tools can have a really lovely place in a skin minimalist routine. Again, if you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review it, share it with a friend, and I will be back next week. Until then, be well. You've been listening to Skin, Earth, Vitality. If you like what you heard today, consider giving me a 5-star rating. It helps other people just like you to find the show. You can shop products and find all of my offerings on my website, stratumaesthetics.com, and follow me on my social channels at Stratum Aesthetics.